Okay.
See, because I'm very, very, very careful with my words.
Is that it's scientifically bollocks.
So it's not bollocks. I know my neurochemistry.
Right? That's
No,
what happens.
that's not right. Why would you ask me a question like that?
She was hostile to me the second I walked into the room.
Really?
Yes.
Dr. Jordan Peterson, a thought-provoking and polarizing figure, he is a genius in controlling the most heated conversations and debates. Today, we're diving into his two most iconic interviews where he's facing relentless critiques, tough conversations, and sharp verbal attacks.
You're just
That's
saying
murderous.
things, though, to provoke, aren't you? I mean,
Not
you
a
are
bit.
a provocateur.
I never said
You're like
anything.
the alt-right that you hate to be compared to.
No matter how unpredictable the conversation becomes or what words are thrown at him, Jordan has this amazing ability to take control, not only with his sharp responses, but also by remaining so cool and composed and confident in his reactions.
You know, like you're certainly willing to risk offending me in the pursuit of truth. It's been rather uncomfortable. I'm extraordinarily sick and tired of this particular accusation/line of questioning.
Let's start with his famous interview with Helen Lewis. In this first clip, notice her probing style and his reactions.
Life about having had violent impulses that you didn't act on. And I think in Maps of Meaning, you sort of elaborate on that. You say you fantasize about stabbing a classmate in the neck. And you say you're very clear about the fact that you never ever thought that you would take those seriously. But it just does make me think whether or not are you somebody who thrives on anger, who finds anger to be something that they need in their life, that they find motivates them to do the things that they need to do?
Those are two different questions.
Okay. You can answer them both.
One is whether I thrive on it, and the answer to that is most certainly not. So I actually don't like conflict. It's
Then
really
how
hard
have you
on
ended
me.
up doing this as a job? Which is arguing with people, right?
Just because no, that's not my job. It's not to argue with people.
Okay.
So my job is to not do things that I don't think I should do. Right, and my government made the mistake of assuming that compelled speech was acceptable as long as it was motivated by hypothetical compassion. And that's not happened for me. So I made that point. It wasn't because I wanted to or because I enjoyed it. I don't really like conflict. I'm actually a rather agreeable person, which is partly why I'm a clinician. And so I find the constant conflict exhausting.
Helen is a very smart and slick lady, and she's really trying to corner him, asking him, do you thrive on anger? If you get that question, most people would feel offended and react strongly. But Jordan, no. He remains calm and composed. And his answers, I've watched this video so many times, and you may not have noticed, but the entire interview, Jordan is so thoughtful, genuine. He hardly moves the entire interview. He even slightly moves forward to really pay attention, to even notice that she's asking two different questions in that same sentence. Whereas Helen, she's fidgeting more. She's changing her posture. She's raising her eyebrows. She's squinting. She uses a lot of hand gestures. And so she's more restless compared to Jordan.
Other things you said, for example, like women wear rouge because it reminds men of ripe fruit. Right? Well, for a start...
Why do you think women wear rouge?
I have absolutely no idea. But I will tell you...
That's really not a very good answer.
Well, yeah, you said before there were lots of things you don't know the answer to. But I'll tell you one thing.
I'm not criticizing your perspective on this. You're criticizing mine, so I'm presuming you have an alternative idea. Why do you think women wear makeup?
I think there are an enormous number. Let's go back to why women wear rouge, because it reminds men of ripe fruit. Okay.
She prepared really well for this interview, and she tries so hard to criticize him, and yet he's able to redirect that question, and she doesn't know how to answer, so she's desperately trying to continue the interview. You'll see how Jordan puts her back into place, just like he did with Cathy Newman, the interview you'll watch later in this video. But first, there is something so important that I found that will change how you look at the rest of the interview. And this is an interview he recently done 6 years after the interview of Helen Lewis. He's talking to Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, he's also a master communicator, by the way, and I made a video about him. You'll see that on my channel. But Jordan admits something very, very important. Just watch.
She was hostile to me the second I walked into the room.
Really?
Yes, and that really kind of put me off.
How so?
Well, she basically told me that we were going to have a war, not so many words, but just there was a coldness to her and a distaste for me that was sort of radiating from her. So she was animus possessed from a Jungian perspective. That's the right way of thinking about it. One of the ways of thinking about that is that she had a chip on her shoulder in relationship to me. So she'd already formulated who I was in her imagination.
Right.
And it was also maybe a form of projection. So like I was the embodiment of all the things that she found distasteful. She was hostile to me in the way that you would be if you were prejudiced against someone right from the beginning. And so by the time it was uncomfortable in the room, and by the time and there was a photo shoot, and so by the time the conversation started, I was more impatient than I would normally be.
Pretty interesting, right? After hearing that, it changed the way I watched the video, and I watched it several more times. And I'm really curious if you notice in the next clip, the verbal ping pong about lobsters. Do you notice her hostile behavior? And by the way, if you like these analyses, can you also hit the like and a subscribe if you haven't done so already? And if you want to, I'd really appreciate that.
So let's get on to the lobsters. It's scientifically bollocks, right? It's just, you cannot read across from lobsters and what they do to what humans do.
Of course you can. That's why serotonin works on lobsters.
He could react angry, frustrated, irritated because of that constant pressure that she puts on him. And no, he stays calm, he stays confident, he stays respectful, knowing in the back of his mind that she's being hostile and she wants to get into a war with him. But no, he respects it and he continues the interview, even if he's really tired of it.
Into the Pizzagate conspiracy theory.
He's probably paranoid.
Right, so there are people who take this stuff very, very seriously and they latch onto it.
What's your point?
I'm saying that, how much responsibility do you feel that you have, particularly guys the alt-right, who, as you say, some of them have enjoyed your work, and say, I'm not one of you guys. I'm not with you guys.
They haven't enjoyed my work.
I've definitely read bits on the internet.
Read more.
Okay.
Find some evidence. I'm extraordinarily sick and tired of this particular accusation / line of questioning. I'm no fan of the identitarian right, the ethno-nationalists, the alt-right. First of all, what do you mean by alt-right exactly? Do you mean ethno-nationalists? Do you mean white supremacists?
No, I mean people who are on the right but have got their power base outside the traditional media. They see themselves as an alternative. So I see them coming
That's a pretty loose definition of the alt-right.
Through that strain of Rush Limbaugh kind of talk radio, right?
It's an unbelievable interview, and I've learned more every time I've watched it. And just to be clear, I'm not here to agree or disagree with what they're talking about. All the videos and all the analysis that I do with these well-known figures on my channel is about the way they communicate and what we can learn from them. Now, she also does a fire round at the end of her interview, which is, again, a perfect example of how Jordan responds. But first, let's dive into Cathy Newman's interview. And not just a famous gotcha moment where he shuts her down. But let's start with this clip here.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Because a lot of people listening to you will just say, are we going back to the dark ages?
That's because they're actually not listening. They're
I'm
just
listening very
projecting
carefully,
what
and I'm
they think.
hearing you basically saying women need to just accept they're never going to make it on equal terms. Equal outcomes is how you defined it.
No, I didn't say that.
If I was a young woman
equal...
watching that, I would go, well, I might as well just go and play with my Cindy dolls and give up trying at school because I'm not going to get the top job I want because there's someone sitting there saying it's not possible and it's not desirable, it's going to make you miserable.
Desirable. That's what I said. It's a bad social goal.
Cathy's also pressuring him, trying hard to corner him. And he could be angry, but no, he solves it with a reaction, with a smile, with laughing, telling her that she's not listening. How irritating is it when you have a conversation with someone and they're not listening? I would really feel irritated and respond, but no, Jordan doesn't. He laughs about it and he stays so respectful. Cathy Newman does not give up, and she's really trying hard. I see it's like a boxing match where she's really pushing and pressuring with these verbal attacks, trying to provoke him.
Doesn't matter who you are as an individual, it matters who you are in terms of your group identity.
You're just
That's
saying these
murderous.
things, though, to provoke, aren't you? I mean,
Not
you
a
are a
bit.
provocateur.
I never said
You're like
anything.
the alt-right that you hate to be compared to. You want to stir things up.
I'm only a provocateur insofar as when I say what I believe to be true, it's provocative. I don't provoke. Maybe for
You don't
humor
set out to
now and
provoke.
then. I'm not interested in provoking.
But what
Not in
about the thing
least.
about, fighting and the lobster? Tell us about the lobster.
Well, that's quite a segue.
Isn't it so brilliant how Jordan is not getting agitated and responding so cool? I'm not interested in provoking. It's amazing how calm he stays. Before showing you the legendary moment, Cathy Newman is trying one more time to really break Jordan down, talking about all of his angry followers. But Jordan fights back.
There's a lot of it out there.
Let's take a more general perspective on that. So I've had 25,000 letters since June, something like that, from people who told me that I've brought them back from the brink of destruction. And so I'm perfectly willing to put that up against the rather vague accusations that my followers are making the lives of people that I've targeted miserable.
Jordan Peterson, thank you.
I will not keep you any longer. Here is the legendary knockout moment.
In order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive. I mean, look at the conversation we're having right now. Like you're certainly willing to risk offending me in the pursuit of truth. Why should you have the right to do that? It's been rather uncomfortable.
Well, I'm very glad I put you on the spot. I'm very glad that I have exercised my freedom of speech.
You get my point. It's like you're doing what you should do, which is digging a bit to see what the hell's going on.
So
and that is what you should do. But you're exercising your freedom of speech to certainly risk offending me. And that's fine. I think more power to you as far as I'm concerned.
So you haven't sat there and I'm just trying to work that out. I mean,
Gotcha.
you have got me. I'm trying to work that through in my head. Yeah, it took a while.
It did, yeah.
It took a while.
Let me know if you're enjoying these masterful examples of Jordan. And I promised you the speeding round with Helen Lewis. She ends her interview with him, and I will leave you with that because the way he handles her questions are genius. And I really hope to see you in the next video that will pop up after that. So enjoy.
But I just want quick answers from you. Who is your favourite author?
Dostoevsky.
Who's your favourite female author?
Margaret Lawrence, I think.
When did you last cry?
Oh, God, who knows? Last week, probably.
Who is your smartest opponent?
Sam Harris is pretty smart. I don't really tend to think of people as opponents, generally.
What big question don't you know the answer to?
What big question don't I know the answer to? Oh, God, that's a tough one. There's so many of them. Well, personally, it's what I should do in 2 years.
When did you last change your mind about something important?
I'm changing my mind about things all the time. Every time I do a lecture, I change my mind about something.